Hello everyone. So let me just check all the door. Okay, so I'll start slowly. Let me know if you hear me good and if you can see everything well. So before I start, while waiting for stream to start, I started working a bit on the face because it would be impossible for me to actually hold it under the camera. And for this lesson and video, I will focus on doing some non-metallics and a bit of fabric as well. As explained previously, I underpainted model in, so this is blue tone, like Phtalo Blue. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but you can use also dark ultramarine as written in the text, and red color coming from the Zenithal. And I also made it coming a bit from this side that Vlad is covering with his cloak. And yes, this is for start. The ambience is sketched. There are some light and dark placements, as you can see. If you're doing this with brush, you can try to follow this reference and to create a blue tone, apply blue tone in the shades and red tone on the light placements like here. And good afternoon. So if somebody can confirm just that the sound is good and the video is good, I will start slowly. Also on the palette here, you will see that I have the colors that are written down in the comment in the video described, and you can see that there. So let's start slowly. The face isn't finished, but I will do that another time. For now, I'm thinking to start with non-metallics and maybe starting with his sword. That should be fun. And let's mix some tones. I would create something that would be more contrasty with all of the ambience, but also to include the ambience there. And let's keep red from this side, and I will go with some greenish tones of the metal here, of course also with some dark shades. And for start, I will create the shade on the sword. Thank you for confirmation and hello, welcome. I will take a bit of this Prussian blue for start, and as you can see I will dilute it with water. So what you want to do is to take the water in your brush and to move the pigments from the paint and leave them next to your paint so you can see the dilution and how it looks. So it's, I'll call it a thicker glaze. So it has some coverage, but you can see that the palette is visible underneath. So it have some water, you can always check it on your finger. And let's apply the shade tone from here. I will wash my brush a bit and just push this further up once again. And here I'm trying to make the pigments disappear. So this is a bit wet now, so it looks darker, but when it dries it will be lighter, and as it goes down it will become more darker because I have more pigments here, and I moved the water up, and I will have a very translucent layer on the upper part of the sword. While waiting that to dry, I will just darken up some places below also. So you can see as it dries, it changes the opacity. So the part that had more water is almost translucent whole, and the lower parts have more pigments and the color have more coverage. And that easy I get this contrast on the sword, and I will continue with step number 2. So I'll take a bit of this spring green, a bit of this primary blue. Let's create some nice colder green tone. A bit of primary yellow. So just mixing around. A bit of white here. So I'm searching on some colder but also lighter green tone. That's why I am adding white in the mixture. So also before I continue with painting, I forgot to introduce the model. So, but of course I wrote it all below in text. This is Vlad Valăcari, and this is miniature from Highland Miniatures. Hope you guys had time to print the STL we provided, and also if you're coming from Highlands Miniatures Patreon, hope you will enjoy this stream, and that you prepared your Vlad, and if not this miniature, that you prepared some other miniatures to paint along and follow this lesson. Of course, I'm Alexandra, Mrs. Craftworld from Craftworld Studio, and yeah, I was so eager to start, so I started painting the sword, and now I'll continue. I created this colder green. And I will start applying that on the edge here first to create some movement of the light. So let's see how easy it will be for me to approach it and still make it be visible for you, like that. as you can see, I'm using the length of the brush to apply the sharp line on the edge. So you can use the sculpt in your advantage and use the brush in your advantage and create these nice edge lights. And these lights need to connect because the light spreads over the swords this way and define it. So I will connect it in the middle like this. So that is the start. No worries guys, and welcome all. So I'll just rotate it like this. For the angle, it will be easier for me to approach. You can see again the length of the brush like that. Adding a bit more white. And if you're following and I'm too fast, let me know. So I will try to slow some steps down, but also I'm already trying to make it slower. Once again, going over the same area that I already applied highlight at, I will continue adding lighter tone there, but covering less surface now, like that. Of course, between the steps you need to wait for the layer to dry so you can continue, because if you don't let it dry and you continue adding colors, then you will maybe make some rough transitions or some damages on your paint layer, so we don't want that. And you can see while the color is like this glossy, I know it's still wet. Getting a bit more blue there and a bit more white. Okay. So as you can see, the edge highlight is spreading more, but the highlight that went on the flat surface and that spreads next to the other edge is wider, but as I apply the lighter layers, it kind of shrinks to the final light, and also it follows the shape of the sword, and here this highlight goes a bit up toward the edge. It's angled. So once again, I'm rotating the miniature, and I'm searching for the angle that will make it easier for me to apply this with the length of the brush. Like that. If it goes too further, you can just wash out your brush and remove the exceeded paint. While that dries, I will use this or maybe even, yeah, I will start with adding white again to make even lighter paint layer, and I will add it on the other edge. Then I will take some red lighten it up a bit, add a bit of yellow to make it a bit more warmer. Check on my finger. So I'm doing this contra light placement of red. So you can see I have light placements of green on the upper side of the sword and light placement of red on the lower side of the other side of the sword. So as you can see how it looks so far. And of course, to make it look even more sharper, you need a bit more lighter layers, so a bit more contrast. Let's go a bit more lighter. So here on the upper part, again on the, I hope you guys can see this, like that. I want to put this sharp light line on the middle of the sword, like that. You guys can see it. And now on the red side of the sword. Once again, I will have the mini here for the easier reach, and like that I will connect these lights. So also for this application of these final lights, you want a bit of thicker consistency in the paint. You can see it's not so much transparent. You can see it here on the palette. So it has some better coverage, so it will not splash all around the details. So the stronger highlights, the better look of non-metallic, because you have more contrast there. Okay, so if you paint along, let me know, and if you manage to follow this step, let me know. I'm thinking to proceed on the armor. And I had in mind that kind of the golden look or more yellowish tone on the metals here. So let's create something like that. And since I already have the red and blue here, I will go with some greens in this ochre yellow. So I'm mixing ochre yellow and spring green. I will also add blue sienna umber. And as you might know, I like to have more tones, so let's mix some red and ochre yellow to have some of the reddish tones there, a bit more primary yellow to make it warmer. And one more thing, if you're following this tutorial and you want to make some color mixes with different paints, I also encourage that. I think that's nice to have more tones created, to try something different every time, to experiment more with paint mixes. Oh, let's see, something like that. So I used a bit of this burnt sienna umber to desaturate some tones a bit and to make more of that natural and brownish look. But the yellow ochre already have that nice touch. Okay, let's start with that. I will start with adding the light placements on the armor. And for example, I will say, okay, the light will hit here, it will take this side, it will catch this and the edge, it will go from this side and cover this much. So you can always look at some reference or follow the rule of contrast and shape definition. So the best way to define the shape is to search for its search for the shape look and to use the lights that will describe this shape better, is to use the lights that look alike the shape and spreads over the edges. I will explain this now. So I'm following this triangular shape here and moving the paint a bit down, and as this bends a bit on inside, I will have the light follow it like this and leave the shade in inner side, inner area of this little detail on the plate. A bit here, a bit there. So everywhere where you think the light would hit, it should be the good placement. Even if you make mistake, you can easily shade it down later, so no worries. You will see this in process. So for example, I will leave whole this side shaded and focus on bringing the lighter edge here. Maybe I will spread it wider later, but for now I will just sketch it like this. Okay, that, and this. So you can see that I'm mixing these two tones, also creating a bit of variations between them. So you can see it. So as you can notice, the opacity of this layer is not too thick. It have the coverage, but the colors from underneath are visible, and that is the point, because this layer is what we call overlapping layer, because I'm bringing some tonality that I want to have on the armor, but I also want it to be transparent enough to show the colors from underneath that I underpainted, and they'll help me set the ambience better. As these colors overlaying, they're with translucency, they're mixing with the undertones and they're creating the new tones that fits the ambience more. Just so also connect all the lights on the edges of the shape. Okay. Let's add some light here. So I'll follow this side of the shape. So these are little, again, triangular shapes, and I'll follow only the side coming from the left. And when I get to the left side, I will switch to the upper area of the shape. You can see contrast shades and lights. The same on the upper side. Okay, let me also add something to these round shapes here. Like that. Be also light coming from a bit of the upper side. Always check your brush if there is some dust there caught. Remove it before adding the paint on the mini. You can see how simply you can describe this little chain with just light placement on the right spots, describing its shape, a bit coming from the upside, like that. Here so we'll add a bit of white there, take a bit of lighter color, so I'll mix it with yellow, and add just a small dots. Okay, let's add more of this yellow, more of the ochre yellow. Mix them together. And a bit of this green, just tiny bit, but it will give nice tonality. Okay. Thank you guys. I'm glad you like it so far. I was thinking whether this is too much for the armor, but it have these really cool shapes and design, so I think it will look really cool in these colors. So as you can see, I'm taking time before actually applying the color on the area. So I have the idea, I go near with the brush, I check if this angle is good for me for the application, especially because I'm filming beneath the camera, so I need much more control. So like this. Non-metallics are fun, especially because there is a lot of play of light, shadow, reflections and all. So you have a lot of things that you can do when it comes to approach of painting non-metallics. So as you can see, I'm also taking the color, then trying to remove the exceeded amount, because you don't need too much. But for example, if you're using brush like this one, some bigger one, that can load the paint and water inside, you will be able to have the longer time application of color, because the color stays wet inside the Bristol for a longer time. I'll use a bit of this Prussian Blue here to make the darker variation of the tone for the edges here. Creating the lighter variations. The edges. Removing the exceeded paint. Like that. Repeating over the previously sketched layer. Let's highlight these edges here. Maybe I lost the focus somewhere. Like that. You can see on this little rivets, just the upper and lower dot of light, it really helps you show the shape. You can see this edge light, it really helps define it a bit more. Let's connect it. I was adding a bit more of this yellow ochre just to make this tone look a bit more creamy. You can see it's light, but it's also not too dry. It has some nice creamy consistency. Doesn't look too rough. So you can see that my underpainting is visible, and as I'm going to the lighter layers, I don't cover the whole area, just a smaller amount of it. Okay. Let's take a bit of these darker tones here, add a bit of yellow ochre, and I want some darker tone here because I will paint this part that is in shade but will also show some of the light. It will catch as the glimpses. It will catch. Just following the shape and here is how it looks, defining it. Okay. So also I'm constantly taking the darker tones as well from this mix. If I want to define something that is more in the shade here, but also I want to connect the lights more visible. Like that. And looking at it now, I'm thinking to wider the area of the light here. So as I say, you will see in the progress how much contrast or what shapes of the light placements you would need. And I want to widen the area here to make it more visible and to pop it out more, because it is in the middle and it would be the highest in the plan. Also have this spreads over the middle. And work more on the connecting these tones. Okay, let's add it on the lower parts as well. So here, a bit more on the edges there. I'll take a bit of this blue instantly and add it here as a reflection to spice it up a bit. How fun! Let's mix these ones and create lilac. You can see a bit of primary blue, primary red and white. I'll add it here as a reflection of the surrounding on the metal. Add more blue, more white. Change the tonality of the tone, and I will work on the edge here. I'll go up with these tones. So the most important thing is to create this good contrast. It will help you show that this is shiny and sharp, strong material. When I say strong, I mean that its surface is harder, so it's not soft like fabric, for example. So with all of this painting, you are trying to describe the shape of the material itself, what it is, how it looks, and also to give some ambient storytelling, good color composition, light and shades play. All of it is important. Here we're going more slowly, just play with some tones and experimenting, and also showcasing some cool stuff that you can do while painting your Vlad or any other miniature that you decide to paint. So there are more miniatures from this range. You can check the Highlands miniatures if you want to paint some other armor, knight, but this is really cool for the vampires. And it is spooky season, so just saying. I'm adding that lighter red also here. Spice it up a bit. Thanks, guys. It would really be my pleasure to see if anyone tries this out and share it with us. We love seeing your works. So once again lighter, and as you can see on the inner side of this armor piece, I went more bluish. On the outer side I went more lilac. I will also bring some of these reds there as well, like here, and traveling here on this edge. I'm thinking to add a bit of this, add a bit of yellow and a bit of white. So red, yellow and white. So my finger is there to check every color, how it looks and the consistency. And to add it here. Love hearing you guys like it. So that is the importance and advantage of having or painting something in some ambience, give it more narrative and all, because it will really help you play more with colors. If you don't think about the ambience and you just focus on painting the plain material, then you go with just one rule of lighting or just spice it up with some OSL or something, but then it requires something more. Here I could say, okay, I could set him in some narrative and maybe try to explain everything that happens around Vlad with the paint, but then it would require even much more maybe detailing on some places. Here it's a good exercise because you set one ambience and you play with colors around it. I go over blue and red with this yellowish and green tones. Then when you complement it with this red accent, it really makes more sense. You can see how simply I just follow the sculpt of this mini and just focus on giving the definition with that. Let me add some of this blue. And maybe just here on the upper triangular shapes, maybe just fill out some of these, add it here because it's a bit in shadow, just play a bit more with that. And then we can have some of red catching this part here. And catches here. I'll take this lighter tone and spread it wider here. Because with this I'm creating some more depth of the shape. If the middle of the shape is lighter, it gets more depth, and then the sides of the shape looks darker. So on this knee pad, if I focus on bringing the lighter tonalities on the middle, it will show that it goes around the knee. So it has sides that are just a bit darker. They also show contrast, they also reflect everything like the middle does, but then this is the high point where the light hits the most. So if you see this part, I will have red visible in shades here, and then I will explain the shape of his leg armor with the highlights. Sorry. Okay, and on this side I will go with blue. Giving it a bit of lilac touch. Darken it up a bit and have it spread here in the under area. Let's add that on these cute little boots. I really like this metal boots design. Always like to paint those. They're really cool. Okay. You can see how I just continuously sketch and sketch light placements. Going toward more blue and connect it. And let's go to some greenish now and bring it here also. More blue. So let's give some upper lights here. Creating that mint green tone. You can see that. Bring a bit more color here. Bring it closer to green, but also be more bluish. What a philosophy, right? So those are the variations between greens and blues. I'm holding everything here a bit more colder so I can have the upper part looks even more warmer. Like that. That's there. And here I will focus more of this lighter greens. Okay, just a technical mistake. Let me just fix this, guys, and I'll be back. I'm back. So sorry for that. Now everything is good. And I hope the quality and all didn't change. Where I was. Okay. Hi Alex. Yeah, so we're in the middle of the process, but I'm still working on non-metallics, so I will continue working on that just a bit more. Then we'll go to fabrics, and later, so you can watch it from here, but later you can also watch the start again, because I will leave this video available. But no worries, it will be good also to follow it from now. Okay, back on track. Let's create some of these warmer greens. Let me see if you see it. So it's not so easy to approach from this side. Yep, you can hear that, but I'll try. Let's add that red, but a bit darker this time. I'll mix it here in between blue and just a bit. I don't know if this part is visible enough because it's inside, but I'll just try to define it for a bit here, going a bit lighter here. And then let's go with this red. Okay. Also darken this a bit more. Let's take this burnt sienna umber and Prussian blue and add a bit of red, creating some darker tone, and add it here to darken it up a bit, make even stronger contrast in between. So it looks more shiny here. Okay, this will again be with these lighter greens, adding a bit more ochre yellow to make it more creamy. Really cool tone, this greenish ochre. I'll go even darker here. As you can see, opacity again, it's semi-translucent, so I want some of these colors to be visible, but I also want a good coverage, so not too thin, not like a glaze. Let's make a bit of darker tone. Okay. For this. So it is like a wider light area here, and then it's thinning down as it goes lower, then it's widening once again. So as you can see, so yeah, I can see here that not much is also visible on that side. I'll try to hold it like this. hopefully we'll see more like that. Like this. As it goes lower, I go colder, more bluish. As it spreads up, it goes more to this greenish yellow. Oh, sorry guys, it's so impossible to not cover it with this flag, and also for me to be able to see it like that. And let's do this side with those cool reds. I mean warm, but cool looking. They're more like like that. So my brush kind of broke a bit, but it still works. Okay, I think that's cool. So yeah, I work with different paints every time. Usually, and most conveniently, I work with whatever I have on my palette in the moment, or if I just feel like adding some colors. But primaries are always good to have for mixing, because they're mixing the best. But you can also try different mixes between the tones. And what I always recommend is to just try mixing them, because with different brands, because they are offering different pre-made tones, you will get different mixes, and it can all work out to some nice tones. If you mix all these tones together, you will get some gray brown tones, so that's also not working. But maybe you want to create some cool gray for the armor, and then you will mix few of these. You can follow some the rules of mixing, or just experiment to get new ideas of what your colors can create. So I always recommend that. you can see even here, and I left this area wider and left it available for all the mixes to be visible, and you can see from this lilac to more reds to some kind of desaturated green because of the reds in there, to light blue, to very light colder red, to very light warmer red, more orangey, more red, all the greens between the darker and the colder greens to the warmer greens, adding some brown from time to time to desaturate it. So this kind of palette is always something good for experimenting. But if you add more tones, for example, let's say if you have blue and red, then you know you will create cool purple tone between these two, but maybe it will not be enough. You can see how soft it is. So with some pre-made of purple, maybe you'll get, if you mix red and purple, you'll get better looking warm purple, and then if you mix blue in purple, you will get more of that violet tone that is colder, and so on. I made it complicated now. But yeah, more experimenting, and try always to mix different tones. It gives you inspiration. I'm thinking on trying fabrics now, and maybe I can go with some darker tone here, some darker red for the fabrics. So I will mix this primary red and Prussian blue to create some very dark tone. So for example, this primary red and Prussian blue, because the Prussian blue have a bit of black inside, will look more brownish. And if I add some violet here, it will be more saturated and nice looking tone. But for now it's okay. I can always add a bit of that later. And I have this underpainting here. So I'll kind of glaze this over some area that I will be painting. Let's say this one. And even in that I will wet blend the glaze that's going above. And again, for this layer I want it to be a bit more translucent because I want to have underpainting visible. So I have my cat visit.
Hi guys.
And Marco. Nico. Yeah. Wish you could paint with me. Yeah. So it's the mother cat of our 3 kittens. There were 4 kittens, but the one was all gray color. It looked like that Russian blue cat. So when I asked if anybody wants cat, that was the first one people wanted to take. They didn't know how cute this 3 will be. They're all so cute. And yeah, we have a black cat. I'm thinking to make him some costume for Halloween. So yeah, I'm waiting this to dry. So as you can see, it is transparent layer, and as I said, wet blending is between this dark tone that I created on the palette and just the clear red. And my brush have a lot of water in it, and you can see the paint is wet. And as it dries, for example, I will take this primary blue here and create a bit of shade area like this, have even more. Let me also shade it here a bit. To create more depth. It's really hard to make that visible, so I'll just focus on this area, I guess. Okay. So let's focus here on this area of the fabric, and I will now take the clear red and just mix it a bit here, so creating the next tone, and I will apply it on the light placement area, taking a bit more red because this is all wet and the tones are soft. Color or paint layer is soft because of the dilution, the water. I will easily apply it. Just like that. And I will go lighter, mixing a bit of yellow into red, a bit of white, just to lose the orange kind of feeling. This is still wet, I will not go too much, just a bit. And just focus on the area and place that you can see nicely. So I'm again following the shape of the sculpt, but as I have the overall volume half described with the underpainting, I will continue on little details of the folds on the cloak and try to define that. So as you can see, it folds here a bit also as he pull it up. And here. Of course, I don't want to leave it this patchy, so while the previous layer dries, if it looks too dark, and it's because it was soft and thin and transparent and the underneath tone is visible, I'll just repeat that with some darker tone that I took from the mix here. And always try to connect all these lights that you're using to define the shapes and movement dynamic of the fabric here, shape of non-metallics described with the highlights, reflections. So for example, for non-metallics, I always like to say reflections of lights and reflections of shades, because those are all reflected on the reflective surface. For example, fabric, it kind of reflects, but not in the manner as non-metallic. it changes the tonality of the red. For example, here I can work toward having red more warm, while on the other side I can work toward having it more cold. And I still have this cold of warm and warm of underpainting. So I have this bluish in shades, but also some reds, and mix between them. So I'm also kind of wet blending part here. You can see it. As I'm going down, I'm taking the darker color and just pulling it lower, having it blend together. Thank you very much, Vincenzo. And I hope I pronounced the names right. So as you can see how it builds. Using a bit of darker red for the under areas. Let me see, I wish I could paint this upper part as well. And for example, if you want to add some texture to the fabric, you can do it in this step. For example, do the little stippling dots or the kind of cloth looking texture like this. It's more like wool, or the little dots and so on. For example, it can be done in this stage. You can follow the light placements that you decided on putting here. I can try it, I can show it here. For example, let's create some lighter tone to match the lights that we created here, and for example start adding the texture. So I also using variations from the mix here. It's not all the same. And I'm going with these little dots on the light placement because they're matching the light color. I'll go more red and go over this shade area here. So for example, if this is silk, these little dots would be even more finer to show that it is really soft and reflective material. Then we can have even stronger highlights, like for example there. Then going a bit darker. I'm trying. You know, I always anticipated my name when we were on some, for example, competitions or something, and when people needs to read my last name especially, it's always a bit tricky. But it's fun. It's always different. So you can see I'm following the same procedure, just adding shades with a little texture on the place where I added shades, adding lights with little textures on the places where I added lights. We can play with ambience and just mix a bit of this red with greens. I mean, I could do that in the previous step as well, but let's do it now and create this kind of the lighter orangey red with green, and add it here where it goes next to the armor and it could reflect. Sorry, it's too close for the focus. Okay. Just play a bit with that. Just go. You can see just this takes a bit of time because it's very slow technique, but also it could look really good if it's done right, and it gives more character to the fabric. So guys, let me know if I lose the focus during painting, because by the time I look it's too late. Like this. Okay. And so on, you can see how it goes. Let's see how it looks go with some blue and greens here on this part of the gauntlet, because I didn't explain this shaded part too much. I want to go over that. We'll see like this, focusing on the bigger area than only on the edge, like on the previous parts. I think I will... Oh, thank you. Great knowing that. Okay. So as you can see, just focusing on explaining the shapes that are already there, with some cool tones and light placement. Okay, and so I showed you non-metallic. I guess I'll take a photo of his face and all other details when I'm done. I show you fabric. If you have any questions about that, let me know. And while you're thinking about the questions of non-metallic fabric and anything else you wanted to know about painting on this model, I will just do a bit of painting on the base, and that would be all for today. So write your questions and I'll try to answer or show them here. Meanwhile, I will talk on what my ideas with the base are. So again, we have some reds there, some blues. We're going more into these darker green tones. For example, this little skull. Of course, guys, when I finish the model, I will share the pictures with you all from more angles. I will, by following this and looking at the picture reference, you will have more ideas on how to proceed with this model. You can use the same color scheme and paint along. You can try some different tones. This could be tricky, but the important thing I would like to say for if you're working with other colors is to make nice composition by mixing some of them. So if you have red near and you want to mix a bit of red there to make green work more, but remember, green and red mixing, they will need some other medium, for example, like here yellow, and so on. Try to create good difference between lighter tones and darker tones. So if you want red in shades, the tones that are light next to red needs to be lighter than the tone of red that you're using. For example, this one is still green but is lighter than red, and so on. I hope I managed to explain it nicely. So you can see I have now purple, that's from the red and blue, a bit of red visible, a bit of blue visible, green and yellow again. And to make it a bit more different than the other materials here, I will add a bit of this burnt sienna amber to make it more creamy and more natural looking, like that. Let's create some of this brownish for the base here. A bit of play of green as well, but a bit of desaturated with brown. More like a moss tone. But then I could also have this red coming through and affect and accent the base. Nothing too strong, still looking natural, but giving some more accent and character there. I hope it is visible. Okay. That would be all for today. I covered some non-metallics, ambience, fabrics, a bit of base painting, but this could be used for any other painting that you choose to do with this tutorial. But to follow the reference and try this, I recommend painting Vlad and following these steps, and later when I publish the painted miniature, you will have the reference to actually follow all the light placements and how I approached, with explanations here and finished photos. I hope you enjoy, guys. Hope you all have a great Sunday. I didn't manage to ask you from what countries you come from. I can see okay, I saw one hi from Guatemala, hi from Serbia here, and yeah, I hope you enjoy this, and looking forward to see more Vlad Valăcari painted. Once again, thanks to Highlands Miniatures, and see you with more videos. Bye bye.